Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Apollo's Odyssey. Today, I have a very special show lined up, an amazing guest I'm about to bring on here. But before I bring her on, I just want to let you all know that I have two spears up on the shop. So make sure you go check those out. These are actually revamped spears. I'm still getting my new studio together, should be in there next week. Also, I got these amazing organite pyramids I've been working on, and I have some necklaces I'm going to be posting tomorrow that are really sweet. They're like kind of like these organite daggers with like moldavite and crushed fluorite in them. So those are going to be really fun. Check out the necklaces tomorrow. But right now, I also have these organite brass knuckles that are pretty freaking cool. So check those out too. And that's all on www.shamanspears.com. So today's show, we're going to be talking about accessing your true divinity because really feel stepping into the age of Aquarius, during this time we're really going to be kind of accessing these other abilities. And I'm so excited to bring on Divine Mrs. M here because she does so much with this topic. So let's bring her on. And we're also going to be doing a conference soon. So we're going to be discussing that. So I'm going to bring her on here.
Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
long time no see. I'm really excited for this conference we have coming up with Seventh Seal Summit. That's this weekend, right?
Yeah, I've done two this year because now that's how I met you as you spoke at my last live event here in Sedona, and I was just pleasantly surprised by your stage presence and your presentation, and I was so thrilled to have you be a part of it. So I wanted you to be a part of this one as well. And because of last year's kind of nonsense that was going on, we had to postpone our event. So we're doing a virtual one and an in-person retreat this year. So we're doing Seven Seal Summit Gateway to the New Earth, which you'll be participating in, that airs this weekend, starting on Thursday, going through Sunday, and then on May 22nd to the 24th, we're having a live in-person retreat, kind of different from the conferences that I usually host. I wanted a more intimate, like powerful setting, and that one's called Bridge of Light. And so super excited for both of those. And Gateway to New Earth is really interesting. It's been one of the craziest years ever, right? Um, and so I wanted to kind of just talk about what's going on, where are we going, and how do we get there? So I brought together a bunch of thought leaders from around the country, from different facets, from UFO to disclosure to spirituality, to see what everybody thought, we had in store for us, and to learn how to take yourself to the next level. So, and that's really like the work that I do is I spend my time teaching people how to be happy. That's what I do with my clients. On the back side of things, I work with the financial system, and I teach those guys how to be great at their jobs, and how to bring all those pieces together. So I have kind of an array of different things that I do with the abilities that I've been able to access. But it's awesome to be able to kind of teach people how to get those gateways open.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about your background? From what I heard, you actually have worked with kind of like helping find like in criminal investigations as a psychic. You helped uncover some criminal investigations, and then also you are a treasure hunter. So I'd like to hear a little
Yeah.
more about that.
Well, I'm always looking for new ways to use these abilities, and so it's been kind of this crazy like roller coaster of things. So 7 years ago, I was actually like a high-end hairdresser, and I worked on tech executives in the Bay Area, and I did platform work and photo shoots, and I taught other professionals, and that was my job. And then this kind of world just collided with mine, and I got thrown right into the thick of it. And I started by working with the financial people, and that led me to working for an agency. I did remote viewing and channeling for them, and I really didn't know that I could do those things. But I apparently they knew, so I ended up doing that for a while, and then and all the while still doing the work with the financial people, and then about maybe 5 years ago, I started working with clients, and I started working as a medium because I had those abilities, and I wanted to help people with that, and it was also, you know, a way for me to really harness my skills, and that's what led to a bunch of different work. So I ended up working on like multiple criminal investigations. My sister is a criminal defense attorney in Las Vegas, and she does mostly homicide cases. So I got to participate in a lot of those, and then working with other attorneys and law enforcement and families that were just seeking information about investigations that were ongoing. And so, of course, they have to do all the groundwork to legally use the information that I give them. But it's just a practice of remote viewing, kind of astral projecting into a space and seeing what it is that happened. And so that I find very gratifying, and I still do work like that. I also work as a medical intuitive. So I've done a lot of diagnosing like mystery illnesses, and I've worked with doctors. Like they'll sit with patient files in front of them, and I'll diagnose the patients. And that is a combination of remote viewing and empathic abilities, and actually using, I say utilize all the senses really to bring the information in. So aside from that, I do now what I mostly focus on, because I did the medium work for a long time, and then I got really sick of like, am I going to get a boyfriend? Am I going to sell my house? Where should I live? Am I going to get this job? It just was like really frying me, and it was also frying me like my circuitry. I did spend so much time in the field, I was starting to get like paralysis in my face.
Oh, wow.
From using it too much. And so I really wanted to do something that was lasting, that would actually help people so they didn't have these questions anymore. And because I'm generally just a really happy person, and I wanted to like help other people feel that way. And so now most of the work that I do is working with the emotional body and finding where you have patterns or blocks, whether they started in this lifetime or other lifetime, with my access to the Akashic records, and then working to start clearing those patterns so that you can really access your own divinity and open up your abilities and make your own connection to your higher self, and really work towards gaining the prize of the soul and integrating that, moving past the personality, and going deeper and having a more fulfilling life. So if there's anything where you just don't feel like it's 100% like the best creation, then I can help you figure out where it's coming from and how to shift it.
So how exactly does that work? Kind of clearing blocks and working through them. How exactly do you go about that? Because honestly, I that's actually something I've been kind of dealing with in my own life. It's like, I'll kind of like reach a bit of success, and then it's almost like there's something there that makes it like not quite continue. I know there's something there. I feel like I've cleared through a lot of my blocks, but I know there's still a little bit left. And so I'm just wondering if you could speak a little on that. Like, where do they come from? Like, is it from things in past lives, childhood traumas, and like, what exactly does it? How do you exactly do you go about shifting these things? And is it something that's different for everyone, or are there like some kind of processes that everyone can kind of work on, just in their daily lives through like meditation or things like that?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a variation on a theme. It all boils down to not loving yourself completely. And this is not a romantic love or a familial love. This is really like source energy love, the unconditional love of the universe, or of God, if that's what you wish to call it. What you're missing is that. And so it comes up in a bunch of different ways. It can be, a lot of people are dealing with not feeling worthy, not feeling chosen, not feeling wanted, not feeling deserving of success. So they'll achieve some success and then somehow sabotage it. And so these patterns are coded into the cellular memory, into the DNA, and they happen in the subconscious mind. And so we have two parts of our mind. We have the conscious and the subconscious. And the conscious mind accounts for about 15% of our reality, where the subconscious mind accounts for the other 85%. And so no matter, try as we might with the will and the strength of our conscious mind, we might still reach these blocks because we haven't addressed where they are in the back of the mind. And basically, if you think of your mind as a computer, this is just a program that's running in the background, and that's your dominant like default setting. So what I do is I use a program to help you create new dominant neural pathways in the brain and bypass the old belief system so that you're not operating from that anymore. And it comes through consistency and a willingness to accept this reality that I'm presenting, the premise of the work that I do. And I've kind of boiled it down to 7 basic rules that you kind of, I was like, I call it my 7 rules of engagement, the pocket guide for winning the game of life. And so that's kind of your go-to, but it really does come through consistency. So, and when it comes to me clearing stuff, I will help you identify where it is, but I don't actually clear it for you, and I don't think anybody can do that. I think there's so many people that want a quick fix, or they want to have somebody, you know, wave a wand over them and take it away, and it's just not possible unless you're willing to do the work on yourself. And so and through that we do a number of techniques. One is, and this is kind of how my psychic abilities work as well, is that everything's happening all at once. And so even though it's in your past in a linear construct, it's actually happening concurrently. And so we can go and kind of change the timelines of where this occurred. So there's 2 ways you can do that. You can go, I help you kind of pinpoint where it is. Where did it happen? I'll see, like, okay, what happened when you were 6 years old and, you know, you felt like this is like the first time you felt like you weren't good enough, and that'll trigger the memory for someone. And then we can go in and we can do one of 2 things. We can either rewrite it and imagine something different happening, because the time is all malleable, or we can say to that 6-year-old girl, what is it that you would say to yourself with what you know now, and have that conversation now. Be the mother that wasn't there, be the father that wasn't there, be the just the knower that she's going to be okay. And somehow it just shifts the timeline in the future. It's funny because I have a friend who's a walk-in, and she's done a lot of this work, and she had like a horrible back problem that left her laying in bed for months in horrible pain. And finally she said, okay, I got to get over this. And so she pinpointed where it happened. She found her a past life where she was a maid and she was scrubbing on her hands and knees her whole life and just had horrendous pain. And she fixed the problem there. And the next day she was out of bed. So and it all goes into, which is what my rule number 1 is that none of this is real. And so when you accept that premise, anything is possible because it's not real. And it's one thing that's really interesting that kind of proves that is the Mandela effect. The things that are ever constantly changing in our reality is like absolute proof that this is not real.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, I have actually done some work with that in some energy healing classes. I didn't really understand the idea of, like, you know, you could actually change the past, but I did a quantum touch energy healing program a couple years back, and my teacher taught us this technique where you could basically, like, you put like, okay, so this is the past and this is the future, and you kind of like act like there's a timeline between your hands, and you kind of feel like energetically until you hit certain points, and then you can kind of like send energy like through the energy healing practice that we do, like, into those points. Oh, wow. Thanks, City L, for the donation. Thank you so much. But so we would like send energy into these different points in our lives, and like through this one class. And he said the first time he had learned the technique, my teacher, he said that he, at one point in his life, he was going through a really bad breakup, and like he was just sitting on a couch one day, like kind of after he was going through it, and he was like really depressed about everything. And he all of a sudden he felt this like waterfall of energy like hit him, and he had no idea where it came from. And he just kind of felt like really at peace and like so much better after he experienced it. And he's like, wow, where did that come from? And then later on, he learned this technique, and he realized as he was learning it, and he thought the first thought was when he like decided where to send the energy back to the first time he was practicing it, he realized that it was him who had sent that energy to him at that point, but like him like at that point that he learned it. And so it made me think, I was like, wow. And I did some work with this and some things in my own life, and it really made me kind of look at things a lot differently. And I'm just thinking, like, wow, is it like kind of like, how does that even work? Like, is it like kind of one of those things where it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Like, it's like you don't know. It's like when, like, you know, like the way he had explained it was like even like his first like memory of the experience was already that he had sent himself the energy, even though at the time he didn't know where it was coming from. So it's like, was there a point in time where he hadn't sent himself the energy, but he like doesn't remember it? Like, you know, it's just, it's so hard to like wrap your mind around.
Perhaps in like a different timeline. It's kind of like that movie Interstellar. Um, and if you were able to sit through the whole thing, which I've done a few times because it's fantastic, it's him helping himself in a different point outside of time. And this is what I teach when I'm teaching people how to access information. So basically, everything is happening all at once, and that's why it's affecting this current reality. So he received, because both versions of himself are happening at the same time. And time happens in a linear kind of concept because it helps to tether us to this reality that we're experiencing. But it's not really like that. It's more like a tube torus that's kind of just collapsing into itself over and over and over again. So like a circle, it's cyclical, but it's kind of going like this. And all I'm doing when I'm accessing information outside of this time is that I am matching my frequency to where that information lives, and I'm able to draw it in. So what I do is I call it dropping into the field. And so the when you start to become aware of how much is kind of layered on top of each other, what it feels like to me, the most I could describe it as, best I could describe it as, is that moment right before you yawn, where it feels kind of like this tension building up. So what I'll do is I let that feeling wash through my body, and I drop into the field. And then I start doing what I call surfing, and I'm just kind of going up and down with my energy until I find a thread to pull on. And then I keep pulling until I can see it clearly. And so that's how you kind of go in, and that's how the time kind of plays into it. And when you're outside of this dimension, like let's say perhaps on Venus, which is a higher dimensional planet than we're on, they don't experience time the same way we do. They don't experience time at all. They don't really have a concept of it. It's just something, again, that's part of this reality that allows us to stay here and have this experience, to perceive this as real so that we can get the most out of it.
Wow, that's really interesting. So when it in regards to like these different abilities that that you've spoke of accessing, and do you feel that like all humans are able to access these different abilities, and what are the different abilities that we can access? Like, how can we go about them? I mean, do you think like some people kind of tend to have some of these sort of abilities more than others? Would this by any chance have to do with being connected to like as a star seed to different races? Like, what are your ideas with all of that?
Well, it all has to do with soul initiation and the journey of the soul. And so we work for lifetimes to unlock these abilities, which is why I focus so much on the emotional aspect, because it's about 10% mechanical and 90% emotional. And the more you clear the emotional body, and this is something the Tibetans refer to as luminous emptiness, the more room you have for the light to weave through you, and the more you can play with it. And so all abilities when it comes to bringing in information are a form of telepathy. And telepathy is something that I like to describe as the language of feelings. And so everything gets kind of filtered through the emotional body. So the clearer the emotional body, the clearer the messages. And then once you move on from that, you start to utilize all of the senses. And so these are abilities that I like to call earned abilities. They're not learned skills. You can learn them over lifetimes, but you also earn them through vibration. And the more you open up your vibration, the higher you raise your vibration, the more kind of opens up to you. In fact, I did a talk for the Seventh Seal Summit about this, about the soul initiation and the levels and what happens at different levels of initiation. But on the third level is when you have full clairvoyance and clairaudience, when you can start to utilize these skills at will instead of just kind of having them happen here and there. The base to the question is, yes, everybody is capable of doing these things. Everybody has the framework within them. The next part is the vibration, and that has to do with the circuitry. So there are two systems in the body where information is mostly delivered through as far as energy goes. It's the blood system and the nervous system. And the more you can handle emotionally, the clearer you are emotionally, the more circuitry you have, the higher your circuitry can handle. Let's go back to the computer analogy. It's like processing data. So because I've unlocked certain things, when I'm sitting in a room, instead of just feeling my own stuff, I feel what's going on around me. I can feel what everyone else is feeling emotionally, what everyone else is feeling physically. And also I can feel the stuff that's tagged along with them because it's all just energy, right? So, but on top of that, we will use we basically, I like to say that I'm learning to master the senses, right? I'm using all of my senses to intuit as much information from a space as possible. Like when I do a criminal investigation, I'm projecting myself into the scene and I'm using all my senses. What am I seeing, hearing, smelling? Look outside. What time of day is it? Am I inside or outside? Is it air cool and crisp, or is it hot? Is there moisture in the air? Is it a dry climate? I'm using all my senses to get as much information I can as possible about when and what happened in that environment. And so that's kind of what happens when you get messages from the other side. It's an impression of information. It's not just a stream of consciousness, which is why I call it the language of feelings, because it doesn't matter what language it's in. When it started for me, when I started getting hearing the chatter, I could hear in Italian or Russian or French. And these are languages I don't speak, but I could still understand what was being said. And it's because it was just an impression of information. And from the feelings, I understood what these people were saying. And that's the same for off-planet languages. So it really doesn't matter exactly how it's being said. It's really just the feelings that you're interpreting and you're using. And only when you reach really high levels of connection, whether you enter into discipleship or you're in the higher levels of the initiatory path to become a master, do you gain a kind of clear, protected channel of telepathy with the masters. Other than that, it's going to come in all these different ways. And the first layer of it is the first kind of entry into telepathy is that gut feeling that you get when your intuition, when it just says, don't go this way, don't leave the house yet, something bad's going to happen. That's actually telepathy. It's just it's the very basis of telepathy. And that's where most humans are operating from. And then what you do need to do is need to learn how to tune out everything else, stop thinking so much about yourself and others, and start listening. And learn how to listen to the subtle language of spirit. And you'll be surprised at how much comes through. I do these sessions with people, teaching them how to do this. It's called my divine initiation. And people are surprised at how much they're able to pick up once they learn how to listen.
Wow, that's really incredible. So what you were saying about the blood, I'm interested, does that kind of mean, so on a physical level, you're saying you really need to kind of treat your body as a temple? Is it like that sort of thing? Like what exactly did you mean when you were mentioning the blood? Like, is it like taking supplements and things like that to kind of keep yourself on point?
There's an absolute trade-off for using these gifts, right? You don't get to be like an average human anymore. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't eat sugar, I don't do synthetic fragrances.
No sugar.
Oh, I know, right? That was the hardest one for me. That was the hardest one for me, but I had to clean my blood out. So to make a clearer connection. And so, but the happier you are, the less you're driven towards these escapes or stimulations, because you don't need them. You're constantly in a happy state. And so, you want to consider your body as your temple and your instrument. And so the less your body is spending time processing toxins, the more time it has for this energy. And so one thing that I teach are breathing techniques, because oxygen is a good way to clean the blood. And so that you can clean your blood through breathing. Also, carrot juice and beet juice are really good for cleaning the blood. These are the types of things. And then I try to always eat organic food. You can't always eat organic when you go out to eat, and you have to live a little and have some joy. But I keep it as organic as possible. And then there's high vibrational and low vibrational food, and then there's grounding food, which is different than low vibrational food. So plant-based food's going to be your high vibrational food. So if you want to stay flying high, stick with the plants. If you want to, if you eat processed food like sugars and processed starches and all those chemicals and not real foods, that's going to bring your vibration way low. And then animal products are grounding in nature, so those are going to ground you. So if you're flying high and you need to come down, that'll ground you really quick. I don't tell people what to eat because it's really up to your body and your guides what you should be putting in your body. But on the karmic scale, if you do eat meat, lamb is the lowest on the karmic scale for some reason. I don't know why. And so those will help kind of ground you down. So if you're in a deep meditative state and you want to stay flying high, stay away from the animal products. If you are flying way too high and you're integrating all the energy that's coming in from the sun and the galactic center, then you want to do some animal products to ground you down.
Wow. Yeah, over the past year, I've definitely done a lot of work with myself with like getting rid of, working through different addictions and things like that. And it definitely feels, I stopped smoking weed a year ago or so, and I definitely feel so much better. I can think so much more clearly. And, I haven't given up sugar yet. That's going to be one that I need to work on for sure. But, it definitely, it's interesting. It's like, I've noticed with myself, there's certain points in my life where it's like, I'll try to give something up and it doesn't really work at that time. And then but then like once I finally do, like there's like this point where I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. And then I'm just done with it for good. Like I can't even, if I try, like now if I go to try to like hit a joint and it's been like a year, I haven't smoked like at all. But if I just like hit a joint just to see like how I react to it, it's like, I don't need this. I don't care about this. And it's interesting when you like go through like working through these kind of things. And then you get to a point where you don't even need it anymore. It's so interesting how it's like a complete shift. And I think it's definitely really incredible, and it feels good. I actually, for me, it was reading Fallen Dafa that helped me kind of work through a lot of things. That's for those of you out there that don't know that's about Falun Gong. It's like a Chinese energy practice. But that definitely helped me work through some things with addictions, and I definitely feel a lot better. It's like working through a little bit of things at a time. And I feel like being out in nature is really a great way to connect and work through a lot of that as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We need to spend time in the sun. It helps us to integrate energy. It helps us to clean the body. And then also the earth helps to ground in the energies. And really, addictions stem from a lack of self-love. It's an escape from a feeling. And when you no longer have fear over having those feelings, then you don't need to turn to that anymore to use it. And like, I'm from Northern California, so I mean, I get like I've smoked my fair share, and in fact, well, the reason that I gave it up was because I had an opportunity to work with some teachers, and that was one of the caveats of this arrangement, was that I couldn't do that anymore. And the funny thing is, they said, we all imbibed when we were here, but you really gave us a run for our money with this. And so, but it just came to that point where I didn't need it anymore. And what I was doing was, I really was using it as a crutch because I could feel so much that it helped me make this place more tolerable, and it helped me be around people so I could block them out. I was like, this is what it feels like to be normal, to not have all these extra senses going on. But the more I loved myself and the more I was able to differentiate between my energy and other people's energy, the less I needed to turn to those things. I never really needed it. It was just something that I imbibed in because it was fun. But at this point, it feels good to feel good all the time and not need an escape. And in fact, my mother passed away in March, and it was really sad. Obviously, she's my mom. I love her, but because of all the skills that I had and all the ways that I had to process it, I didn't find myself um, looking for ways to escape the feeling or the sadness. I just allowed myself to process it. And when my dad passed away like 10 years ago, I was in a much different state. I didn't have all these skills, and I did really unhealthy things to try and feel better or feel anything. And it took me about a year to go through the process of grieving him, where my mom, it just took a couple of weeks. And I feel relief that she's no longer suffering and that she's in a better place. And I'm grateful that I had so many tools to kind of process it and not like go into that dark place with it. And it felt really, it's so empowering when you get to that point where you are able to have feelings and kind of bounce back from them, or not need to escape from your feelings anymore.
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear about your mother, by the way. My condolences. But yeah, I've noticed with a lot of people in my life, people kind of a lot of people I know tend to take Xanax when things like that are happening. They'll take Xanax or like different drugs like that to like kind of like, because they feel like that's gonna like calm them down, help them work through things. But it's like, okay, by doing that, you're just pushing it off for later. And so it's like, doing these things, it's like just masking your emotions, and then later you're still going to have to work through it anyways, and it's just kind of going to pile up. And that's something I had to realize with myself too, and definitely feel a lot better being able to work through things better and process them. Jupiter Love Jam here asks, ask her about soul contracts, please.
Okay. Well, I mean, there's a number of ways that could go, but essentially, when you come here, and it's funny, I'll tie in what you just said about pushing stuff off, because like I said before, you're gonna, those things will stick with you into another lifetime. And so you'll bring those things with you. And so basically in when you come in to an incarnation, you begin on the level that you stopped on. So in like I was saying with the soul initiation, right? So if you leave on level 3, you're going to come back on level 3 and you can start working to level 4. So that's part of the soul contract. The other contract is you choose the family that you get born into, and you know that DNA that you're bringing in is going to help, is going to shape your reality. You know the parents that you're choosing, and you're choosing those things because you know what your soul needs, where you think you hope you know what your soul needs to make it to the next level of ascension, to get closer to being back at home, the star that you came from. So you have a contract in the beginning. You pick your entry date. You pick couple exit dates. You pick your theme of your lifetime, what it is you want to work on, whether or not you're going to bring through children. And then you have like a global purpose as well that most people have, where they agree, like I'm going to help with children, or I'm going to help with the planet, I'm going to help with the ecosystem, I'm going to help with animals. Those all go into kind of the soul archetype that you pick. So there's about 7 main soul archetypes that you can choose from, and you kind of go through all of them in different lifetimes. And when you've completed 7 of them successfully, that's when you access the records and are able to look into the Akashic records. So that's the contract. But you can opt out of the contract. You cannot fulfill the contract. This is just kind of, you're in charge of the soul journey, right? We live in a free will universe, and there is no right or wrong. It's just what happened and what didn't happen. There is a higher path to choose, and then there's a path that takes a little longer to get you back to source. And so it really doesn't matter just how long, it's how long you want to take, and everybody gets to choose how long they take to get back to source. It's up to them as an individual soul. So we do have a contract. We do have things that we kind of agreed to do, and we're also not, there's other universal laws, like we're not supposed to interfere with other people's journey or path, whereas we have to allow them to take as long as they need to, and only help when we're guided to help, and to stay out of it when we're told not to get involved.
So you think because of this, then does that mean that the people that we attract around us kind of naturally are the people who are kind of fit into maybe helping us with our own soul contracts, and then in return we're maybe helping them in the process of theirs?
Yeah, so that goes into something I like to call quantum entanglement. And basically, the people that we encounter are the same over and over again because energetically we become entangled with them, with these karmas or these dramas that happen lifetime after lifetime. Now, this also goes into my rule number 2. And so we have one, this is not real, right? This is all an illusion and it's a dream. Number 2, there is no separation. And there's a couple ways to interpret this. One is that we're all one, it's all kumbaya, which is fantastic. But also, what it really means is that everything that you're experiencing and everyone you're experiencing is of your own creation. You have called them all into your life based on the program that you're running in your subconscious mind. So, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you created it. You're in it with them. You called this person in to either be a reflection to you or a light to you to show you where you're not in love with yourself. And so yeah, all of it is of your own choosing. There's no one in your life that you didn't choose to have there. Whether or not it's pleasant or unpleasant, you may just be operating from a wound or a belief that you are taken advantage of or that you don't deserve to be treated well. And then you invite people into your life that reflect that. That's what happens mostly in relationships. And that's when I'm working with people on relationships, like, okay, work on yourself and clear this before you try to get into another relationship, or you're just going to date the same person over and over and over again. Same
I've
person.
experienced that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how that works. It's like, it's like same kind of thing, different face, until you work through it. And
Exactly.
that's why I've kind of taken some time off to work through things, because I noticed that happening. I'm like, okay, there's something going on with this.
I cut that out too. I was like, you know what? I'm good. I'm going to figure out what's attracting this person and I'm going to clear that out before I date any more people. And then ever since I started that process, anybody that I kind of like bring into my life shows me a little place where I'm still out of alignment when it comes to romance and love. And I'm like, thank you for the lesson. And I'm moving on. And so that goes also into my rule number 3, which is you're not a victim. Right? You can't be a victim because there's no separation, because you created all of this, because it's not real, because it's just a dream. You can't be a victim of what you created. You just have to say, you have to analyze, like, what is it that I'm doing or thinking or feeling that's calling this person into my life? To like, what is it that they're proving to me? What belief are they proving to me? And if it's something unpleasant, then you really want to focus on finding the root of it and clearing it out so that you don't have to prove it to yourself anymore.
And it's like, you don't like, do you feel you can ever fully clear things out? I mean, I feel like it's like, no matter how much you tend to work on things, there can still be a little bit there. I mean, I don't know, what are your thoughts? Like, is there things that are always going to kind of still be coming up, or is it really possible to really clear through everything?
It's possible to clear it all, but it takes a really long time. So consciousness is like a spiraling path upward, right? So you're going to revisit some of the same things that are still there, that are still underlying, that you thought maybe weren't there anymore. And like, for instance, even the masters are still working on themselves. They're still going through initiations. Like after Jesus went through the crucifixion initiation, he came back and had another life as a fellow named Apollonius and went through the 5th initiation and became going into the 6th initiation. So there's the ascended masters are still working on themselves. You're not considered a perfected being until you hit the 10th level of initiation. And of the 7 billion souls in our planet, only one has made that level. So, but the good news is that you feel better along the way. So it doesn't take lifetimes and eons to feel better. It may take eons to become the perfected being, but you're going to feel better as soon as you clear something out. And then the next time it pops up, it may pop up in a way that's a little louder and bigger to get your attention and let you know it's still there, but you're going to have the tools to deal with it. And basically like the universe just gives you what you can handle, like what you're calling in, what you're inviting in, because that's the rule number 4. So the universe is just saying yes to everything. That's what our universe does. That's how it was created. It just says yes to everything. And that's why you want to be mindful of your thoughts and your feelings, because those beliefs are creating the reality that you're existing in. So if you're saying I'm a victim, it says, okay, great, let me give you experiences that validate that belief. If you say I'm a victor, it says, let me give you experiences that validate that belief. If you say I want to move, but I'll never be able to because I can never afford it, I don't know how I'm going to get out of here, I feel stuck, the universe is, you're right, you're stuck right where you are. But if you say I want to move, please show me how, then it'll show you the way.
Yeah, I've definitely, for me, I feel like every time I think about things, they instantly start happening around me. And I definitely feel like I had to be very careful of my thoughts, because I can see when, if I kind of fall into a spiral with things and they start coming up, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to slow down. So it's been a lot of work for me in the last few years. I've been really trying to work on, where I'm at with my thoughts and being conscious of it. And, it's hard to control, but, once you really got the hang of it, it's kind of fun to work with. I was curious earlier when you were talking about soul contracts, how can you tell if you're like kind of in alignment with your soul contract, like the reason why you came here? How do you know if you're in alignment with that or, or not?
Well, everything's just in a flow, right? So you're just flowing and there's nothing, it's just like one door leads to the next door to the next door. Now, the initiatory path of the soul is not always easy. And sometimes you get presented with like big initiations that are hard, and they're hard because they're worth it. And they get to be as easy as or hard as you choose them to be. Um, but a good way to indicate is you'll have like synchronicities happen, like you'll see the numbers or the signs that let you know that you're on the right path. And it's kind of like if there's something like a major obstacle in your way that pops up, it's like, well, this is not the right path for you. Or like the universe will kind of course correct you too. Like I was meant to do the work that I'm doing now, and I started my career as a hairdresser, and there was an overlap in between doing that and doing this. It wasn't just a quick, like one day I was doing that and the next day I was doing this. No, it took 3 years for me to take the leap. And I was scared. I didn't want to lose the business I had built. I didn't want to lose the personality or identity that I had of being a successful individual. And I was leaping into an unknown arena. And also I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could do the things that people were telling me I could do. I thought they were nuts. I said, you got the wrong girl. Like, I'm just a hairdresser. This is not for me. And so what happened was I ended up getting really sick. I got poisoned in my job. So I got formaldehyde poisoning, and I couldn't do
from the hairdressing, like the chemicals.
I was always a natural hairdresser. I didn't use chemicals or that kind of stuff, but my neighbors did. And those Brazilian blowouts have formaldehyde in them. And when you hit formaldehyde with 450-degree heat, you're creating formaldehyde gas. And so it made me really sick. And I couldn't do my job anymore. And so the universe will course correct you in that way. If you're not willing to take the leap, it'll make it impossible for you to stay in the other field of work. Like they didn't want me, my guides and my soul didn't want me doing mediumship readings anymore. And I thought I was helping people and I was making good money, and then my face started becoming paralyzed. So that was a good motivator, like to stop doing it. It was like, oh, okay, like maybe you want a face that works still. Maybe you should change the path that you're on. So the universe will correct you. And the best way to roll with it is to just be okay with everything, which is my rule number 5, is you want to just be okay with everything. Because if you stay neutral, then then you're not creating a problem. Because again, remember, the universe is just saying yes to all of it. If you're saying there's a problem, the universe says, yes, there is a problem. Let me give you more reasons to believe this is a problem. So you just go, I'm okay. Everything's okay. Everything's happening for a reason. Everything's in divine perfection. And you just stay neutral and you don't get charged up over anything. And that's how you stay in the flow and you move on to the next lesson with ease.
I love that. Yeah, I definitely, that is so important to keep in mind. It's like, like what you're saying with the obstacles coming up in your life and it just being a universe course correction. I love looking at it that way because, yeah, it's like, like sometimes it's like these horrible things happen. People tend to like get really down on themselves about it. And it's like, no, this just wasn't right. And it's like, if you kind of look at everything from a more detached like outlook, then it's like, okay, like there's a reason why this is happening. And sometimes painful, what's the quote, new beginnings are often disguised as painful endings. I love that. It's like whenever I feel like that's happening in my life, it's like, okay, something really good is about to come out of this. So as long as you listen, like what you were saying earlier about listening, it's so important to listen, especially to the things that are happening around you. Oh, George, and speaking of listening, George A asked, seeing consecutive numbers, do they mean something specific, like 1 11 11, 2 2 2 2, etc.? I am curious what you can say about this too, because literally for some reason for the past like week for me, it's just like I get this a lot, but literally every time I look at the clock, it's been 111, 222, 1111, like constantly. And it's actually kind of really blowing my mind because it's almost every time I feel like I need to look, I see it. So
absolutely. So those are like, again, like I was saying, these are some of the synchronicities that'll occur to let you know that you're on the right path, that you're walking down the right path. And of course, each number has a different meaning. Like 1111 together is a Christ consciousness number. One is in numerology or in the destiny system is a representation of new beginnings. It's all about starting fresh. And so the numbers are interesting because when you put them together, it's not, they're that number. It's like, it's amplifying the power of them. And so like an 11 or like a three numbers together is like a master number. So it's just a stronger amplification of that number. And so 1111 or 222, which is 333 altogether, is again, it's pointing towards mastery. Two is also the card. It's also the number of conversation. It can be a number of worry if you don't. If if that's the shadow aspect of the number, and so they each have kind of a different association. Like 5 is a number of change, 9 is a number of completion, 10 is a number of success, 8 is mental power, 7 is karma, 6 is challenge, or 7 is challenge, and 6 is karma. So those are kind of like balancing numbers when you see them, and numbers, really what they are key codes of frequency. It's like a way to describe a vibration or an energy. And so it's just a key code. And so different numbers, like Tesla says, the power of 369 is all you need to know about the magic of the universe. And it's like 369 963, right? It's the mirror of each other. And those, it's a powerful number, and it has different various meanings depending on what you apply it to. So the numbers I think are really great for people, especially when you're kind of just starting on your path of consciousness, to let you know that there is a purpose, that there is a reason why this is all happening, and that you're, number one, it's not happening to you, you're creating it, and number two, you're creating in a positive way now. There's something going on here where our planet is in a massive transition, and our abilities to manifest are even stronger than they ever were before, because there's no veil over that manifestation power anymore. And so we have to be really mindful of what it is that we're creating, because you think about somebody that you're maybe not pleased with, or that you don't want to talk to, and then all of a sudden they're texting you or calling you. It's just happening instantly like that now because of where we are in our evolutionary process. And so we really want to be mindful of that.
Did it used to not be so instantaneous, or is this something that's kind of happening more recently because of, as you said, where the planet is transitioning right now?
Yeah, we're transitioning, the planet's transitioning, and so because of our new place in the universe or the galaxy, our planet has moved. That's made the manifestations happen more instantly because the higher amount of photon light within our planet, that's all happening more instantly, and because we're rising above the vibration of the tacit agreement that we had to be, fuel for some lower vibrational beings, and we're actually utilizing our own creator power more. There's something, we're creators, right? And there's this process that you go through in your awakening where you realize that you're a god, and you wake up one day and you realize that you're a creator being, that you're a god, and then you realize that everyone is, and then you realize which aspect of god you are, and then you realize that none of it matters because all you are is who you are in this now moment, and it's just your job to unlock your divinity right here and right now. And so why did the masters want to teach us this lesson? It wasn't to inflate our egos and let us think that we're gods amongst men and that we're, masters returned and we're walking the planet. No, it was to help us understand that we're creating all of it, the good, the bad, the ugly. We're creating all of it. People ask, why does God create suffering? Well, God didn't create suffering. God just allowed us to. Like, because the universe, which is God, is just saying yes to everything, and is saying, oh, that's what you want to experience, the duality of suffering. Okay, well, here you go, have at it. Like, I hope you come home soon. Like, that's all it says. It doesn't judge it, just lets you have the experience.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, I really feel that. It almost brings tears to my eyes, honestly. Um, I didn't think of where to. I had a question. I kind of lost it. Um, oh, so I was gonna ask you earlier. When did you start realize? Did you ever like kind of see these abilities coming up in you when you were younger? I know you said that you didn't really start using them until a little later in life, but did you like notice things as a kid? And do you feel like kids are kind of intuitively tapped in? Because I definitely feel like there was a lot of aspects that like things that would happen to me when I was a kid that it was like I recognized them later. Like one thing that happened to me all the time when I was a kid was I would kind of like when I would be at like kind of like nap time or just like laying down, I would like do this thing where I would like have this like rocking feeling and I could like see this like really intense like meditation. It was almost like I don't know if I was like leaving my body or what, but it would always be this like rocking feeling, and I really enjoyed it. And then I would like kind of like leave and come back. I don't know if I like it was like astral projection or if I like meditated, or if I was activating my energy field, but it was something I randomly like did it again one day on accident. I realized like I remembered I used to do it all the time when I was younger, and it was like it took me like accidentally tapping into it again to think back and like realize that I had done this like very often when I was younger and I wouldn't have like thought about it otherwise. So it kind of made me think like, as kids we're probably way more tapped in, before like the, external like a world kind of, as we go along in the world here, like we kind of like start to lose some of these things. So what are your thoughts on all that?
Well, I think that, yeah, they're more open when you're a kid because your perception of reality is different. You're not accepting this as a concrete reality like you do when you're an adult, and you're not distracted by the things in adulthood that you have to focus on. Like, and that's kind of interesting. That's kind of the process that we're going through now. Instead of becoming awakened in a state of like we've done in the past, where we've been cloistered and done, meditations and abstained from human experience, we're becoming awakened in a 3D environment, with the stimulus of our 3D world, our bills, our health, all of these things. And so there is more access when you're a kid, and then things happen here. This is a toxic environment. You're getting poisoned constantly. Kids are getting jabbed. They're getting they're being fed garbage food, and this is shutting them down. And then the whole reality, because it's a consumerist reality, is designed to make you feel like you're not good enough. You're moving away from that self-love that you may have had at a younger age. So those kind of things can shut it down. Doesn't mean you can't work through them or you can't utilize the abilities with those things in play. So what happened for me was, when I was 27 years old, my father was passing away. He had cancer, and it was the first time in my life that I was introduced to a medium. And I I had always believed in magic. I just had never experienced it. And my whole life I had like kind of a trickling of magic. I knew when people were going to die. I would have death omens and dreams like that. I was good at finding things, which is why I went into the treasure hunting stuff now. And I could see people's dreams, and I had weird stuff that was just kind of flickering on and off. And I had contact with ghosts, and I was abducted a number of times as a child. And I think that was part of the delayed onset, was that um, I was abducted into the government programs when I was young, and I think I was using my abilities elsewhere. So when I was 27, I met a medium, and being exposed to the frequency of what he did reminded my body of what it felt like to use it. And that's what I tell people I'm doing now with them, is I'm just reminding you what it feels like to use these senses. I'm not teaching you this. You already know this. I'm just reminding you what it feels like. And so the more time that I spent with him, in combination with my father passing away and it just kind of shattering my heart walls, because I had never felt something so intensely before, um, all of a sudden I was online and it was just turned on like wild. It was crazy. I was still working as a hairdresser. I thought I was losing my mind. Things were flying off shelves. I was causing power surges. I blew out all the dryers in a salon for like 30 stylists. I blew out a four-corner block of lights. Every time I walked into a building, the lights would go out. I was just kind of like blasting everything. I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know how to manage it. I was hearing voices. I was like, I was emotionally on a roller coaster. Like I said before, I didn't have this strong feelings. Like I was always very mellow, and now I could feel everybody and everything, and I could hear like 100 people talking at once, and I was smelling things that weren't there, and it just was really intense. I didn't sleep for a few weeks, and then I started getting abducted again, and by the inner Earth people, and it sent me on a whole different life path. And so, but that's kind of how it came back for me. It was a combination of the frequency and the emotional body. And that's people need to move out of their heads and into their hearts. And they need to be willing to do the work that there's there's something that this is why our retreat's called Bridge of Light in May. There's something called the Bridge of Light, and in Eastern philosophies, it's called an antikarana. And this is your connection with God or your higher self. And it is a light that it's a bridge that connects you from the personality down here and the soul, which eventually integrates into the body, into that higher self, so that you're operating from that. And there's 3 ways to build your bridge of light. One's through creativity, one's through service, and one is through feeding the mind. And so it was a combination of those things that unlocked it for me. I was one of 9 children, and I grew up as a twin. So I never experienced selfishness. I didn't know my sister and I were separate people until I was 5 years old. And that was a foreign concept to me. I grew up in a we. I was always part of a we. And I never put myself or my needs before me or the family, because of the environment that I grew up in. So, and that way I was always of service. And then I was very artistic, and I was creative, and I was a dancer before I was a hairdresser. I was a competitive dancer, and I traveled the country doing that and competing, and I also painted and made costumes and food and all kinds, anything I could do. I loved creating, and so I did those things, and all of that helped me to open it up, the abilities that were dormant within me.
That's incredible. Yeah, I really feel for myself, definitely my bridge is creating. It definitely, for me, it puts me in a very trance-like kind of state. And if I'm just working on art for hours, it's like a lot of times if I'm going through something, I can really just kind of alchemize it just by sitting there painting a picture. And it's strange because it's like a lot of things will actually come in as I'm doing that. I noticed over the summer when all the pandemic stuff started happening and I didn't have my usual work in entertainment. I started working for this artist, and he actually built like all the biggest temples for like Burning Man. And so I had to like help basically use like power tools and sand these big like wooden pieces like all summer long, like all day, every day. And the sander machine, it had this like high pitched whine. And I guess it might have been because of this, but the whole time I was using it, um, a lot of times I like during the day, I don't know if it was because of the whine or just like being in this state of like flow, like working on something and kind of putting my concentration on it. Um, I would actually like remember a lot of my dreams that like I didn't remember when I woke up, you know, like it just randomly like dreams that I had the night before would just come in like very vividly, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, I remember this. I dreamed this last night, and I wouldn't have remembered it besides that. So it's interesting. It's like there's
Yeah.
definitely something there when you're working on things. It can help bring
It's a
things through.
meditative Yeah, it's a meditative state. And so I don't believe that meditation has to be done sitting in silence. There are many ways to meditate, and when you're creating and you're doing repetitive motions, that's also another way to tap into the meditative state and allow for things to open up for you. And so it also builds confidence when you it's a way to start loving yourself more when you create something from that didn't exist before you came along, that came through you. To see it, to create to completion and see it in its finished work is something that builds a lot of confidence and help with your self-love. And so a lot of people don't think that they're creative, or they can't like, and they wonder why they're not opening up. Now there's many different ways to do this, and there's different, versions of lifetimes, where some of them are scientific and medically based. It's all about finding the balance, but you can be creative. I like to think of, and I did this when I was a hairdresser, is that creativity can be systemic, and that once you understand what will happen when you do something, then it unlocks your ability to do whatever you want. And so I always was pushing the envelope when it came to hairdressing and doing kind of really out there things that other people were too afraid to do. But I worked very long to master my craft and understand what would happen when I did that, so that I wasn't afraid, and I knew the parameters for which I could create. And that's kind of like the universal laws. Once you understand the laws of the universe, you know the parameters of your creation down here, and those are the only laws that apply to you as a sovereign being. So if you apply those laws of the universe to yourself and you create within those parameters, your potential is limitless. And so that's why I came up with the rules, because it was like, okay, let me bring this down into very easy to remember kind of format that you can kind of check in with and see if you're within those laws, within that framework, and make sure you're creating from the right place. And so that's kind of like why I went through those. And that's why I'll just give the last two before we finish, so people have a completion here. 6, we kind of touched on this earlier, is it's a 2-part rule. And it's this one: what everyone else is doing is none of my business, and everyone gets to take as long as they want to come to their own divinity. So and I have no rights to make demands of others. So I have no rights to make demands of others, and what everyone else is doing is none of my business, right? So if you're upset with somebody because they're doing something that you don't like, well, it's not your business what they're doing. They get to take as long as they want. And also, you have no right to make demands of others. Your happiness is not contingent on what other people are doing. It's happening to you in the moment, and you get to choose whether or not you're going to be happy. It's not contingent on any circumstance. I learned this lesson when I went from being a very successful platform artist to living in a parking lot. And I got to choose happiness in that moment, without anything but money for my next meal, maybe, if I was lucky. And I really learned that lesson the hard way. But happiness is not circumstantial. It's a choice, and you get to choose it every day and every moment. And so the last one, the rule that trumps them all, the most important thing, is all you need is love, and love is all you need. Everything that you're experiencing that's not to your liking is coming from a place where you don't love yourself. And so all you need to do is love yourself more, and you can get there. And there's tools for this. The stuff that I've described, you can work with me to help get there. There's a wonderful program called the Giving Game that's free, that you can access on my website that'll help get you there. I like to utilize mantras. Like when I start to go into a negative thought process and something is coming up that's unpleasant and I'm in a spiral, I use a mantra to get out of it. I like to do the Ho'oponopono, which is, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, or just a simple, I love you, I love you, I love you, until the thought passes. And it's a great way, like we were talking about earlier, instead of escaping your feelings, to just plow right through them without fear. Just allow yourself to feel it until you don't feel it anymore, and until you get to the other side of it. So all you need is love, and love is all you need, and that will open that is how you access the divinity. That is how you open it up to its fullest potential, is love yourself completely. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it is. Like, it's funny where the answer is both the shortcut and the answer in this scenario. It takes you as long as you want to get to this realization or to this acceptance, and the universe will help show you where you're out of alignment and give you the opportunity to correct. But that really is all it comes down to, is just loving yourself completely.
I really enjoyed listening to your rules here, and you said you're going to give them in a presentation at the Seventh Seal conference.
Actually, there's videos of me talking about this on my channel on YouTube, The Divine Miss M. And then I have a website called divinemissm.com. That's divinemsm.com, which has some links to those videos. It's an easier way to kind of find yourself on my YouTube channel. At the Seventh Seal Summit, Gateway to the New Earth, what I'm talking about is soul initiation. And I do a quick review of the 7 rules because it's part of the initiation of the soul. But I talk about the 11 levels that are outlined by the Theosophical Society on the initiation of the soul and the path that we go through and what gets unlocked. And I think this is really important right now because there are a lot of what I would call false prophets or charlatans out there making claims about who they are. And I explain the race system and the structure and why people think that they're certain ascended masters because of the ray influence of their lifetime, and also how to determine whether the person in front of you is really who they're claiming to be. Because let's say they're claiming that they're an ascended master return. Well, if they can't teleport, then they're not. If they don't have complete memory of all of their lifetimes, then they're not. If they don't have full clairvoyance and clairaudience, then they're not. And so it's really easy to tell, to discern, because there's a lot of that going on. And it's not coming from a predatory place, honestly. It's coming from a misinterpretation of information. It's coming from a lack of awareness or understanding of the hierarchy of creation and where we fall in it, because this information was removed from us a long time ago. So people are just misinterpreting the information that they're tapping into. And also because of the ego. So, the ego tells you that you're the master. And not the student, but then that robs you of the chance to become the master because you think you're already there. So I put together a great presentation on that. And then we also have many awesome interviews with other fantastic people, anywhere from also like medical stuff. I interviewed a great guy called Dr. James Chappelle, and that one YouTube wouldn't even allow me to have that one. That one got banned. But there's a lot of great interviews and presentations, including Apolla's. So I definitely recommend seeing that one. That was something I was really interested in too, because I'm also a fan of chalk fresco. So there was a resonance when you tapped into that. That was one of like the first things that I got into was he's featured in the Zeitgeist series. That's how I got tapped into fresco in the beginning.
That's how I learned about him as well. And Peter Joseph, the director for Zeitgeist, it's crazy. I saw Zeitgeist when I was 16, or 15 or 16 at the beginning of high school. And I actually ended up with my band eventually my bandmates actually knew him, and eventually I started performing for his Zeitgeist Media Fest here in LA every time he had them. We ended up becoming good friends, and I never would have thought that would have happened. It was pretty crazy. It's really
Yeah.
awesome. But I'm really excited to hear your presentation. I'll definitely be checking that out. It sounds very interesting. And it was really
Awesome.
amazing to have you on here. You're so tapped in, and I love hearing everything you have to say. I love talking with you. So it's really enjoyable to have you on tonight.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm so honored that you invited me on your show. And I'm so grateful to collaborate with you and have you be a part of our events. Tickets are still on sale at sevensealsummit.com for both the virtual event and the retreat in May. And so I hope everybody found this information helpful, because that's really my passion, is just to help people feel happy and just be their best selves and have a joyful life.
You've definitely given me a lot to think about. So I'll definitely be processing some things tonight from this. So thank you so much. It was really enjoyable. And I hope everyone tunes in to the Seven Seal Summit this weekend. Is this weekend correct? This
Yeah,
weekend?
starting on Thursday, the 22nd, I think.
Thursday.
Yeah, 22nd. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone here tunes into that, and I'll put a link in the description a little later on. So, all right, any final words or?
I just going back to all you need is love, and like I will say this. Okay, so enlightenment is a cosmic joke, and if you're not laughing, you don't get it. And here's the joke. For 19 million years, the people on this planet have been sitting in their cages, shaking their fists at the sky, demanding the key to get out of this place. And they never thought to turn the handle and know that the door was never locked. And so you are free. You've always been free. And if you stop thinking about yourself as enslaved or oppressed, then you can enjoy the freedom that was given to you by your creator. And so that's the cosmic joke of enlightenment. The answer has always been within you. The only way out is in.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on here. And again, everyone, all you need is love. We'll just end it with that. So until next time on Apolla's Odyssey, I'll be back here on Thursday at 5 p.m. So until next time, over and out.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.